Welcome one and all to episode 34 of Titan Teatime. I'm Petter and this is James.
Hello!
And today we're taking a look back at the final arc of Attack on Titan. And by
Woo!
that, we're not necessarily talking about the final arc as in the War for Parity arc, since that's, well, we started that arc last month and did what we considered to be that arc. The last 4 volumes is what we're talking about today. I think the fandom deems it to be the second half of the War for Parity arc, but it's not really about a War for Parity at this point anymore, and we also didn't want to talk about 8 volumes in one go. So here are the last 4 volumes we're revisiting, we're rereading. We've both read this before. It's volumes 31 to 34, chapters 123 to 139, the very end of the whole series. And spoiler warning for everything in case anyone didn't understand that we're going to be talking about the whole manga today. Well, the ending of it. So yeah, just a chill little discussion about the ending of this
Oh,
beautiful
absolutely
manga.
chill. There's nothing more heartwarming than reading these last 4 volumes. Like, it's just a really relaxing time.
Yeah,
No, actually, it is not relaxing. It toys with your emotions in a lot of ways.
it does.
First, the tragedy of the rumbling and just the horrifying imagery that's throughout the volumes in this, plus the conflicting emotions that Aaron has and that all the characters have about what they have to get done,
Mm-hmm.
and the bittersweet ending at the end that I think for a lot of people is bittersweet in different ways. For some people, it ended horribly. Like I can't I can't count how many people I've talked to that have just like hated the ending for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
But I also can't count the number of people who have loved the journey and thought the ending was either good enough, or even great.
Yeah.
So, to each their own, but I think everyone can agree that it's a bittersweet ending.
Right. Yeah. For sure. In some way or another. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fandom was in tears. Everyone was in tears when the last chapter came out. And we were just crying for all sorts of different reasons.
Oh, yep. Yep.
Uh,
Sadness, joy, laughter,
Disappointment.
disappointment, laughing because how terrible they thought it was.
Oh yeah. So yeah, fun. It's fun. But getting into it, we open up with chapter 123, which is a really special chapter, and I remember when we talked about it when we were covering the chapters as they were coming out on the podcast in the early days of it. I compared this chapter to the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, did you really?
I remember doing that, and I think it's funny just saying it right off the bat like that. It may sound kind of strange, but I still stand by it, and it's from a pretty specific angle. It's basically that the Shawshank Redemption has 2 main characters, but 2 characters that are protagonists in very different ways. There's one character who is kind of the guy that the story is about, and there's the other main character who we kind of see a lot of the story through his perspective, and he narrates the story.
Right.
And this chapter is kind of like that. We have Aaron, who it's about him. The chapter is mostly focused on him, but Mikasa is the narrator, and we get a lot of her perspective throughout that chapter, which is really nice to get her perspective on something like that, because we don't get a whole lot of that throughout the story. So that's something I really appreciated that chapter for.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't think about that Shawshank Redemption comparison. Although I guess you did mention that. Maybe when
It was a long time ago now.
Yeah, it was. It was a long time ago. But I do agree with you that this chapter is wonderful. I think is one way to describe it. But it's also kind of the last moment we get where they're all together and enjoying each other's presence.
Yeah.
And it's kind of tying back into the bittersweet thing. This is the precious moments that we have, the little precious moments we have. It's nice to think back on that, and then the stark comparison to what's actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
It's quite the contrast.
For sure.
It's one of my favorite chapters, though. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
No, for sure. Yeah, I can agree with that. And yeah, and it's like, speaking of having that final happy moment with the whole gang, I think moments like that are hard to, because when you're in the moment, you don't necessarily know that this is the last time that we're all hanging out and having a good time together.
Right.
And obviously the characters didn't really know that, but for us readers, we pretty quickly understand that that was the case, because in
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the scene right after, we see Aaron leave, and we understand then that he leaves them for, to live in Marley for a bit
Mm-hmm.
right there. So for us readers, we understand pretty much right away, and that also kind of helps give that feeling of, yeah, that was the last happy moment with the 104th gang, and yeah,
Yeah.
definitely bittersweet.
And touching on that, if Mikasa had known that would have been the last moment, the last time to say anything, I think her answer would have been different, or she would have actually really given an answer.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
at that moment when Aaron asked, what am I to you?" Um, because we do get the alternate universe or alternate reality of Mikasa giving a different answer and running away with Aaron
Mm-hmm.
um, later on in the story. So it is interesting to think that if they had known that, maybe things would have been different. But how could they have known, other than
Yeah.
Aaron, I guess?
Right. Right.
And that's the interesting thing is Aaron, when he's in that moment and someone interrupts, and then the guys all come here, he says something about it being perfect timing, but
Mm.
it's almost like sarcastically,
Oh.
or maybe like he knew this was going to happen, or my thought is that if it had gone any further, like if they had kept talking, maybe he would have run away with Mikasa and had not done what he was meant to do, or what he had
Hmm.
uh, told himself he would do. And so with them interrupting them, that was the perfect timing, the opportunity to not put himself, not run away. The
Interesting.
temptation was gone, I
I
guess.
see. That okay. I mean, definitely could be that. I always just viewed it as, well, the old man had just invited them to drink with them right before the others arrived, and he was like, "Yeah, perfect timing. Now we can all drink together," kind of. Uh,
Oh, really?
that's
Maybe,
always how I read it.
maybe.
I think I
Uh-huh.
still prefer to read it that way, because I think Aaron
Oh, really?
wanted to have this last moment with them, this happy moment with them. After all, he was the first to take a sip from the alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he needed and wanted to have that moment with his friends. Although I'm not saying your idea is wrong. I like that idea too, but I'm probably choosing to view it the way I said.
Yeah, it's just that he looks so sad when he says perfect timing.
I get. I mean, he's sad in general in that moment. I think,
True.
but well, and on that we learn in chapter 131. I'm just, well, hopping a little bit back and forth here, but it's related to this chapter. In chapter 131, we learn that Aaron was disappointed when he learned that there were humans living outside the walls,
Mm.
and something that I never actually really thought of reading 123 was just how disappointed he looks in especially in that first scene in that chapter when they recently had gotten to Marley, and they're in the streets, and some of them are making gags about the car and buying a bunch of food. Aaron, I think he looks disappointed, and I never thought of it as disappointment before. I just kind of saw it as, well, kind of the sadness that he has to, well, about having to kill all of these people eventually, which obviously I think is that as well still, but the disappointment in combination with that sadness, I think I could see that in his face this time, and it was nice to do that, because I didn't have that knowledge the first time I read this chapter, so it was nice to have that.
I still struggle with the disappointment line, and I know when we talked about this chapter, I think we were trying to understand, and I don't think we quite saw eye to eye in it.
Ah.
Um, and as I was reading it, I thought, oh, maybe Petter is right. But then I kept reading, and they both him and Armin bring up the walls and how they're still there, and what if we were to break down those walls? And I feel
Hmm.
like that's what he's disappointed about. He's disappointed that the walls of society, the walls of uh, uh, dealing with Eldia and the Titans' powers are still there. So I think what he's disappointed about is not necessarily that humans still exist, but that no matter even though they broke down the walls that surrounded that kept them away from the ocean, there were still the walls of their nationality, the
Mm,
discrimination,
right.
and the Titan power, like those kind of things. Like that was the walls that he was disappointed to still see. And
Mm,
then Armin pontificates, well, maybe there is a world out there without any walls. And I think that it could be implying a world without Titan powers. And I think he says that right after receiving the vision from Aaron, even though we didn't know it in that chapter. And then
right.
was that 131, I think.
I think yeah.
Um,
Mm,
we didn't know at that time, but in the last chapter we do see that that happened at the same time.
yeah.
So I think that's the what he was so disappointed in personally.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that as kind of an extension of there being humans, because I think Aaron and Armin have different outlooks on humanity, kind of as a whole. I think Aaron has a more pessimistic look on humanity, as it kind of like humans, like if there are humans, there are walls, um,
Mm.
kind of that way, and so it kind of goes hand in hand. The walls thing and the humans thing is kind of like the same thing
Mm-hmm.
for Aaron, because he doesn't have that much, maybe that much faith in humanity, based on
Mm.
his own experiences, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is fair.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Armin has a more optimistic outlook on humanity, and he imagines that the part of humanity that we've seen, which has had these types of walls, might not be the only humanity that is out there. There may be other lands out there with
Mm.
perhaps, well, yeah, where things might be better.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. So I guess it's a concept to me that I've always found that it's not exactly, oh, he was disappointed in all humans being there. Like
Mm,
I don't know. I can't I don't feel like that's fair because he does feel so distraught about killing everybody and the sins that
right.
weigh down upon him.
Mm,
It, um, but if it's more of an idea or a concept rather than the actual people, then I feel like I can see why he'd be disappointed.
right.
But I also see where you're coming from as well. Like I feel like I guess I just have conflicting feelings. I guess
Right. That's understandable.
the first volume, I think you can really see depression was hitting Armin pretty bad
Oh yeah.
towards the beginning, and even um, in the last volume, it had probably got to its peak.
Yeah.
Um, uh, when he's screaming at himself. But I think another kind of disagreement we had, but I think I'll concede and agree with you, is that when he is trying to convince Connie to let go of Falco, or to give him back,
Mm,
uh, he basically puts himself on the line. I remember you saying like, "Oh, he was very suicidal there," and I was like, "Oh, I'm not so sure he's suicidal. He just knew Connie would save him." And maybe that's true. Maybe he knew Connie would save him, but knowing that he has those thoughts about I should not have been the one to be saved,
right.
it should have been Irvin. I do think that he was very much willing to die at that point, and so maybe it was, a bit suicidal.
Mm, you're right.
So
Although at the same, like, yeah, I think definitely he had those thoughts. Although at the same time, I'm sure he, at least in the back of his head somewhere, he had the idea that this could also, well, he could be saved, and that perhaps, well, the way things turned out, that his actions there actually ended up helping Connie understand everything that he had done wrong, and kind of helped him become a better soldier.
hmm
Maybe that was also somewhere in the back of his head as a possibility, but I don't think
yeah,
he counted on that necessarily happening.
uh,
Um,
fair enough.
but yeah, no, he was definitely, though, as you said, like this arc as a whole, like these four books, I will say is like the lowest Armin has ever been, kind of.
Mm,
Because we started off with, the rumbling begins, and he feels like, at first at least, he feels like everything is lost, kind of, and he's
yeah.
really upset with Aaron. He even takes his confusion and anger out on Mikasa, in a
Mm-hmm.
way that we've never seen before, and
Mm,
and that kind of makes him feel even worse when he realizes that he just kind of lashed out at her like that, and
yeah.
this whole time he feels more convinced than ever that Erwin should have been saved instead of him.
Yeah. And I think the guilt of not being able to stop the rumbling from ever happening, or the guilt of not finding another option,
Mm.
was something that weighed both him and Hanji down quite a bit.
Yeah.
They felt responsible that we're supposed to be the brains, I guess, and
Mm.
we and Hanji being the leader, and they couldn't come up with a better plan.
Right.
Um, and so I think they felt responsible in that action, and I think that also led to Armin just being so
Mm.
down on himself.
Yeah. All
And
that
speaking of that,
pressure. Mm. Oh. Mm.
yeah, you're right, all that pressure. And speaking of that, it wasn't until the very end where we finally got Armin coming with plans and kind of leading people and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, you know, for a while there, he really wasn't doing a whole lot. Obviously, he was just overwhelmed, and like you said, the pressure was on him. But the Armin in the past would have thought of something eventually, but there just wasn't a whole lot of big brain moments. And even Annie brings it up. It's like, hey, what happened to the guy who outsmarted me all those years ago? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
But he does get there eventually, I feel.
He does. Well, yeah, because when he enters paths, when he's eaten by the Titan on Ymir's back, he has that moment initially where he sees his lifeless body and he's really upset at himself. He expresses how much he
Yeah.
hates himself, and well,
Mm.
obviously, that's like really like the climax for his
Mm-hmm.
just being down on himself, and just yeah, his depression and his low self esteem just can become clearer than it ever has right then. And so like yeah, this arc just is for the most part pretty much yeah, a big majority of it just really shit for Armin. But then comes that moment when he kind of gets to prove himself though.
Yeah.
Not through his intellect and not through any strategic capabilities and not through his leadership,
True.
but through his ability to understand Zeke and help Zeke view the world in a more positive light. And I loved that, like that was what the way that he got to kind of prove himself. It wasn't in, I think most of the ways that we had, like most fans had probably speculated, it wasn't in any of those types of ways. It wasn't a new way, kind of, or not a new way necessarily, but I think a way that kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people.
It's also a way that I think the world needs
Mm,
understanding. You
yeah.
know, less trying to trick each other and more trying to understand the person you're talking to, because Armin takes what he learns from there and what he, I guess, learns from Aaron, and uses that as I guess their kind of mouthpiece, if you will, going forward. So in that sense, he becomes a leader, but it's a leader not strategically or of an army, but one of peace and understanding.
Yeah, I think this is for me. I think this is Armin's strongest arc in the manga.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty strong. Maybe I'd even say that too. Hmm.
Hmm. I guess going back a little bit to earlier in this part, something I thought was really sweet was how well Nicolo, kind of how his opinion on Gabby has changed by kind of by the start of this arc, because we saw obviously he wanted to kill Gabby. He attempted to kill Gabby in
Yeah.
the previous arc, and now here, when after Gabby had killed Nile Doc's Titan, there were those soldiers on the rooftops who kind of suspected and started questioning Gabby, but he stood up for her and helped her kind of get out of that suspicion. Was really sweet. Although what I think was even sweeter, obviously, was Kaya's change of heart, kind of in regards to
Yeah.
Gabby, and that whole conversation that the two of them had, and them making up was just yeah, super sweet. And I imagine Sasha's father, is to thank for both Kaya's and Nicolo's kind of turnarounds, because he's
Hmm.
just yeah, he's just such a good influence on people around him, I think.
Absolutely. Some great character moments for a lot of those people who are still on parody.
Yeah, right.
Like kind of last time we see them, really, until the very
Right.
end.
Yeah, right. I like how, even though obviously we don't get much at that, after the 3 year time skip, but we see the Blouse family, and they're clearly not with the Igorists, and I like how they at least make that clear. And even Hitch, who is with the Jaegerists, she's yawning as she's doing the salute. So I think that also kind of
Right.
indicates that yeah, she's not really with them, kind of.
Hmm.
So that's also good to see.
I have greater appreciation for the Magath and Shadis scene,
Oh yeah.
and the great sacrifice they made. Like, sorry, skipping ahead, but I don't know. I really liked that moment much more, and maybe the anime has something to do with that. But
Mm.
rereading it, I feel that it wasn't as rushed as I thought it was.
Yeah, right. Well, the I think well for me, Magus side of it hits me always hits me harder than Shadis's
Mm,
moment, or well, I mean it's the same moment, but because Magath had this beautiful character arc that led up
yeah.
to that moment, and it was just so perfect. I thought
Mm-hmm.
his whole character and yeah, the way it had been portrayed. So I think, especially for me at least, Magath's story and end there is just great. Shadis also is beautiful. I think it's great that he actually gets to kind of play a part in something that has meaning, sort of, or like for him to understand that as well, because he always viewed himself as a bystander and not being anything special, but he actually makes a difference here, and yeah, obviously that's beautiful as well.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite chapter from these four books is chapter 127, Night of the End.
Hmm.
It's one of my all-time favorite chapters from the series as a whole. One of them, but I think yeah, definitely my favorite one from these books. And I like because how in the chapter before that, Marco's death was hinted at from John when he decided to go along with the alliance because if he didn't, those burnt ashes of the dead wouldn't forgive him for it. That was kind of the chapter before that, but then in chapter 127, Marco, was brought more into the forefront, and I just love the character moments that we got from that being brought up. We have Reiner, of course, kind of facing his
Mm-hmm.
past in front of Marco's friends for the first time, and just talking about it in front of John and Connie and Mikasa and Armin,
Mm.
and being able to kind of unburden that is heartbreaking because obviously because he is so emotional about it, so he doesn't really know what to say, and like he just becomes a mess right there, which in turn kind of just rubs Jean the wrong way because he's already struggling with controlling his emotions, which I
Yeah.
think he does well at first.
Mm-hmm.
He really kind of keeps it together, but because of Reiner struggling himself with his emotions, Jean ultimately just kind of explodes, obviously, and
Yeah.
it's just it's so well made, like seeing these characters kind of react to each other in that kind of way, and then Gabby begging on her knees in front of the Paradisian Eldians to help them. Obviously, a
Yeah.
big moment for her that also comes
Mm-hmm.
from that. Followed by this, and this is the last thing I'll say on this. Magath looking very genuinely concerned at Gabby as she's crying, kind of like a parent would. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like that's also such a nice little touch. So yeah, there's a lot I love about that chapter, but these things that I just mentioned that came from the Marco, well, from his death being brought up, is hands
Mm-hmm.
down my favorite moment from that chapter.
Yeah. I still love the part where um, John is like, "I'm not gonna forgive you, Reiner." He's like, "Oh, I don't expect it."
Yeah.
And then Annie's just like, "What about me?" Like,
Yeah.
and me.
Right. It's great.
um. So,
Uh,
yeah, that chapter, a lot of closure, a lot of
yeah.
pent up feelings were brought out, and truths were fully revealed.
Mm.
Um, and some understanding was brought up. I like the Magath and John confrontation, even though I think
Right.
it's frustrating a little bit because both sides were clearly at fault
Yeah.
in how they're bringing up history and whatnot.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but eventually, the Magath and John come to the realization that there's no point in bringing that all up,
Right.
um, and kind of justifying your war crimes because of what happened in the past
Mm.
is not right. And so I think I don't know, that I like that part of it, um, just for how human it is.
For sure. Yeah, and I think Hanji is definitely my MVP for that chapter because they really make sure that everyone just kind of behaves. And
Right.
it's just so cool of Hanji.
Yep.
I mean, Hanji was the one to kind of ultimately bring everyone together to begin with,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
a great feat in and of itself, but also making sure they stay together. And yeah, during that scene was also a lot of fun to see.
You know, she's so down on herself. Like
Mm,
she's done so much. Like
right.
I this read through, I think the person who has grown in I've grown greater appreciation for is Hanji. I think,
Hmm. Yeah.
just her role in um, gaining information, leading the troops, trying to fill the shoes of Irvin, and all the other things that she does, and really it's less so much about her Titan research, even though I know she'd want to be known for that, but it's more so I guess the actions Hanji took
Yeah.
and the initiative.
Right.
Um, and probably one of her greatest things was getting this alliance together and
Mhm.
deciding genocide is wrong, and we're
Right.
going to change that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how Hanji had such a strong opinion on that. Um, but I think Hanji's strong suit really is connection between people, and that's
Mm,
where her strengths lie. Well, because obviously, as we've talked about, well, Hanji was the one to bring the alliance together, and that is all about connecting with people. So that's
that's true.
clearly a strong suit shown there. But also what Hanji did during her years as the Survey Corps commander was to, well, build ports on parody to, enable, like, to allow people to connect to parody, build the railroad on parody. I think was also Hanji's idea, as well as straight up go to Marley, show their faces potentially, if they're, well, if the need would arise,
Right.
and to talk to people straight up. I think it's totally Hanji's kind of, well, strategy, and it's not
Hmm.
something that, well, it's not directly something that, well, for example, Erwin would have thought to do. So I think it's nice to see Hanji's approach, and it's not a bad approach. It just didn't work out in this situation.
Right. And maybe just needed more time. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
um, people eventually, like that whole committee, eventually were open to realizing, hey, people of Eldian blood are people too. It's those people on the on the island that are wrong.
Yeah.
So maybe eventually they could have realized that no, everyone are people. But
Mm,
anyway,
yeah.
and maybe Hanji's idea and Armin as well just needed more time,
Mm.
um, supposedly. But obviously, Tiber was not going to allow that to happen.
No, no. But Hanji had also another great death, I think. Similar to Magath's in the way that, well, they sacrifice themselves in order to allow the others to go
Right.
on, kind of. But also great to see, like, well, it's very fitting that Hanji dies to these very special titans.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think Hanji was kind of excited about that, even though it was dreadful. uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
While quick, I think it still brings a tear to my eye, um, to see her sacrifice and the moment that Hanji and Levi have. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like I mean, and I say quick, like it's not like she didn't have this whole story to have a character growth and everything like that. So I mean, I wouldn't call it rushed, but we I can understand where Hanji fans can be a little distraught or sad. Maybe distraught's not the right word. Sad that, oh, my favorite character didn't get as much of a send off as I was hoping. You know,
Right.
but again, time is of the essence, and also she does get that vision their death scene at the end. So there,
Yeah.
I feel like it's enough, and it's good.
Yeah.
So and like you said, fitting to her to die that way. But yeah.
Mm. No, I think actually I think her death is good. I don't think it's really rushed at all. I think Hanji fans. I mean, I am a Hanji fan. Not like
I
I'm
just remember hearing that complaint.
There's others. Fair, but I think definitely this afterlife vision that she has, getting to speak to Erwin, even though it's brief, is super nice. I think, uh, but also
If
really
the
just
afterlife was real, they wouldn't ask what you had been doing. They would have already known.
would they necessarily though? We don't know. We
They
don't know
would
that. We don't
have.
know that for sure.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to talk about this.
Anyway, my last point, I guess, my another reason why I think Hanji, well, kind of the send off is good, and there was kind of a little bit of a build up, I suppose, depending on how you see it, is just the fact that the alliance is Hanji's legacy in a sense, like Hanji being responsible for putting it together, and they in turn continued Hanji's vision in a sense, and succeeded. It honors Hanji, and yeah, I think that's nice, and I think it's important to remember that Hanji really was the person who assembled them all.
Absolutely. To the chagrin of the Jaegerists, you know who you are. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely her legacy. And I don't think Hanji would have wanted to live in a world without Titans. I don't know. Obviously, living is the better choice, but
Well,
still, it would be sad for Hanji. Like, oh, good job, Aaron. Now those fascinating creatures are gone.
Yeah, that's fair. Uh,
I like Yelena a little more this time around, and how she gives advice, and you know, where advice to go. Like she says where Aaron could be going, and then you know, has her before that she has her moment of uh, kind of uh, I guess pleasure where she makes them kind of turn on each other in a way.
well, she tries
I do
to, or and I guess they do to an extent, but they don't do it as
right.
much as she had wanted them to. I think.
Probably.
Mm.
I don't really know her all her true motives, but by the time she gets her arm broken, she's like, I want to see this to the end. Like, I don't want to die yet.
Right.
I still wish that we would see what happened to her exactly, if anything, just
Right.
because someone's so passionate and goal driven like that.
Mm.
Yeah, she loses her purpose, I guess, that she made for herself, but does she find something else? What is she doing now? Like, I don't know. Maybe she died. Who knows?
Right. Mm.
So that was one thing for me. And then just some thoughts on 130. I know we already touched a little bit on 130 and 131, but um, some things that in hindsight I find interesting.
Yeah.
So he's talking to Historia, Aaron is, and he says the only way to put a final end to the cycle of revenge born from hate is to bury that history
Mm.
and the civilization that created it deep in the ground. So you read this and you think, okay, so he's talking about humanity and and their hatred towards everything, right? Maybe, uh, but I wonder if he's talking about the Eldia civilization and the Titans' powers, because those were in a way born from hate. Although we do understand that Ymir loved Fritz,
Mm.
but it's also kind of a love hate kind of thing going. I don't know.
uh,
Um, but I think by getting rid of the Eldia power, like the Titan's power, and burying that history in the ground in a way, you potentially end that cycle of hate, at least the cycle of hate where Eldians are pursued as much as they are, at least in that aspect. So that was just a
mm.
thought I had, but maybe he is really literally talking about just genociding the whole world. But even he knows that if you get rid of the whole world, that you know there's still be conflict within parity. Like
Mm.
he's aware of that. So why is he saying this kind of stuff unless he's talking about something else?
Yeah, there's yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah,
uh,
I don't know if you'd have any thoughts on that or
hmm.
not, but just wanted to throw that
Well,
out there.
I mean, when you started talking that much about burying and whatever was supposedly being buried, Aaron's head came to mind for me because they buried his head,
Ah, mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you could view his head. The implication seems to be that his head was somehow a seed to make that tree grow into what it became in the epilogue. I guess,
I guess, yeah, it's
like
mm-hmm.
somehow that, yeah, and that supposedly maybe there was some kind of essence of the Titan power in his head or something.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't
And
know how I was supposed to connect this to what you were saying, but burying, it was buried. The Titan thing was buried, but it grew up into a big tree again, or I guess.
well, yeah, I mean, so yeah, that does happen. We don't know what exactly goes on from there.
Yeah,
I guess it just maybe it does imply that the cycle can potentially continue in a way, or at least
potentially.
renew, not continue. Because I don't think it's fair
Mm.
to say that the cycle is not broken. It's broken,
Mm.
but it could renew, I guess. Anyway,
It could.
that's a good point. That imagery also did come to mind, where you bury that history and the civilization that created it deep in the ground. Um,
Right.
so by removing the Titans and I guess that potential Titan seed power, uh, placing that in the ground, buries it, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's some truth to that. Although, how would he have known that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. No. Totally.
so yeah, it's I could be reading into this, and maybe some Aaron fans are just like, "Oh my gosh, they're trying so hard." It's just a thought. Like
Yeah.
the ending does happen, so it makes you rethink a lot of what he was saying in these previous chapters. I
Hmm.
feel like.
Yeah. No.
Um,
Absolutely.
and another one of those sayings is "destroy all the animals in the world." This one is really hard for me because he said that line before when he's talking about the Titans, but when he says it in 131 or was it 130, maybe both,
Mm.
he is talking about rumbling the world.
Yes.
So it's like, does he mean like humanity in general? Um,
I think so.
so do you think he meant humans? You just said so, but or do you think he means the Titans again? Like he's clearly distraught about what he's doing, about killing humanity. Like that is clearly something that upsets him, and he can't forgive himself for. Nor should he.
Mm.
Um, unlike say Flock, who on the other hand is a Jaegerist who believes, yeah, we can kill everyone outside the world because they deserve it. I have no regrets about it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
At least that's what Flock becomes eventually. I don't know. I don't think he was like that at first when Aaron told him that plan, but
Right.
I'm sure that he
Mm.
convinced himself that was the truth that needed to be.
Yeah, no, I think I just stand by the idea that Aaron's view on humanity is just very pessimistic, and that he doesn't believe that there can exist humanity without metaphorical walls. Kind of.
Oh, I don't believe that.
I
I
th-
don't believe that.
Aaron, I think Aaron doesn't believe that.
No, I don't believe that Aaron believes that
Okay. Well,
because why? Because then he would just kill everybody. He would just kill everybody, not just the people on the other side, but parody as well.
but no, but
He'd kill everybody.
he was biased though because he was born and raised there. So he couldn't kill them.
Yeah, was discrimination.
Yeah, 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 right. Okay, yeah, that's a little Vinland Saga reference for anyone who doesn't understand. Mm. But yeah, yeah, no, I think so. But
Yeah, yeah,
obviously I can't say I know, but
fair.
it's my thought that I choose to go with.
Hmm. But he also knew that, or like the reason why he did all this was to make them the heroes of humanity. Like he wanted them to be the heroes of humanity. Like, so he, in order
Mm,
to be heroes of humanity, humanity still has to live, and not just parody, but the people
fair.
outside the walls.
True. True.
So, I don't know. Like, yeah,
Aaron is complicated.
it is complicated. It is very complicated.
Uh,
But fun to talk about. And
yeah.
I guess Flock is also a complicated individual.
Hmm.
I don't agree with the ideas of um, one country being greater than the other, or an empire being greater than the other, or anything like that. And I struggle to think, or I struggle if Aaron is of that mindset. I think some people view him as a, I guess, nationalist. I,
Mm.
I, I don't know. Like, he does mention like to protect parody, but I feel like he's protecting his his friends, and obviously he does this so that they would be the saviors of humanity, as I mentioned. So it doesn't feel like he's necessarily doing it for country and nationalism and raise the Eldia Empire. Like,
No.
he wants to die. Like, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
I guess he doesn't want to die, but he also feels incredible guilt for what he did. Anyway,
Yeah.
versus Flock, who at the end is very much, we have to do this, otherwise our people will die. We have to prove that we are the Eldia Empire. The Eldia Empire must rise again, which is some very fascist ideas, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. There's absolutely a difference between Aaron and Flock,
Mm,
and I think it's easier kind of to get behind Aaron on some levels compared to Flock.
mm. But at the end of the day, it's Aaron who's doing the genocide. So,
I mean, yeah, exactly, and I'm definitely not getting behind that. I just feel like Aaron, while he does that, as we've talked about, he does feel immense regret and guilt over it, or guilt at least.
hmm
And I think that says something about his
yeah,
character. Um, Flock has no regret about killing anyone outside of
yeah,
parody.
hmm
So on that level, I suppose, I'm more with Aaron, I guess. But yeah, it's just a very
hmm
specific kind of thing. But yeah.
right, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Flock. Well, I don't put him in my favorite list of characters. He's one of those ones you love to hate,
Yeah.
and um, there is a bit of complication there. It does feel a little unfortunate that he could have been there the whole time. I think that would have made his support of Aaron and his defying of the alliance mean a little more if he was there from the very beginning.
Mm.
Like, you know, not just like put in a flashback, but actually there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
but anyway, that. Those are my thoughts on Flock.
Mm, mm.
How do you view Aaron's comparison with Reiner now, as he laments killing all these people? He kind of becomes a murderer to save others. Is that where the comparison lies? Where Aaron and Reiner are the same?
No, I think the primary resemblance is in their willingness to push forward in situations where others might not have.
I agree, but I think I'm putting it even further
Okay. Okay.
in that they became murderers to be heroes, to save the world. You
Right.
know,
Okay.
Reiner
Yes.
did Reiner did that,
Mm.
and so did Aaron, and I think they even say when they're in the plane and having even further um closure talk,
Mm.
they mention, oh yeah, we're just all the same in that way because we've done all these terrible things, but we still wanted to redeem. We still, well, not redeem, but to save the world.
Mm.
And that's what got me thinking about it all. But
Right.
I could be wrong. I could
No.
be interpreting it to
No, but I
incorrectly.
agree with that. Like, I think you're absolutely right that is another resemblance. But I think there's two ways, in my opinion, at least,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of that make Aaron worse than Reiner. In
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah,
in two
totally.
different ways. The obvious one being that Aaron's killing is far greater. Obviously, killing is
Mm-hmm.
bad regardless, but I do still think that, well, it's fair to say that killing 80% of humanity on Earth is far worse than killing the people within the walls, even though obviously both
Yeah.
are dreadful.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Mm-hmm.
one thing. Also, the other thing is that Reiner at the time had no real understanding of the world. He was a 12-year-old kid who was largely brainwashed by the society he was raised in.
Mm.
Eren, of course, has his background as well, but still, he's an adult at this time, and he's even seen the outside world. And so I think he has much greater perspective and an understanding of society and the world and everything than Reiner had at the time. So I think it's more fair to put blame on him for what he's doing. While, of course, you can blame Reiner if you want, but I think Eren's sins are, well, they're greater and they're done with greater knowledge of how bad they really are.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's the fascinating thing is Eren totally agrees with that. Eren says, "No,
Right.
I am worse." You know,
Yes,
like
he does.
it's oh gosh, such a fascinating tragic character.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of this volume, it mentions that Attack on Titan is a grand epic. You know,
Yeah.
And it got me thinking about those Greek epics,
Mm.
specifically. Oh shoot, Oedipus, is that the one where he sleeps with his mom, then he gouges his eyes out or whatever, you know?
Yes,
that
yes.
one. And how kind of nonsensical it is in a way, but it's tragic, and you see the downfall of the hero and all that, and you have something similar here. Not sleeping with his mom, thank goodness, but that would have been really weird. But
yeah, unless he was in Grisha's mind when
no,
no,
those
okay.
stupid memes, like like you know, Aaron, like Zeke and Aaron, like go see. Anyway, too far.
Maybe.
What I'm saying is that in a way, it is like a tragic epic that a lot of times in modern modern fiction, there's always a satisfying happy ending. And I like satisfying happy endings. Don't get me wrong. But it's rare nowadays to find a story, I feel, that goes into more bittersweet, tragic, kind of a Greek-esque, or maybe not just Greek, but an older mindset where this story doesn't have to be perfectly set up or perfectly ending. You know, it tells what it wants to. It doesn't like conform in order to be perfect.
I wonder if that's true or if we just kind of seek out mostly those types of stories that aren't
The
like
more satisfying ones.
I wonder. I mean, I don't know. I definitely
that could be
couldn't
true.
say. Although I one thing I think I can say for sure is I think most of the kind of more widespread popular current stories are more like happy ending kinds of stories. I think I can say that for sure. I think you'd have to look into more, well, less mainstream stories to find the modern tragedies, mostly, probably, maybe.
And maybe that's a testament just to our worldwide culture as it is right now. Because even in Japan, a lot of their stories back in the day were tragic, and people love that kind of stuff. And I guess from my studies of Japanese literature, they were inspired by French literature as well in some aspects.
Oh, I see.
And that was tragic in tone as well. So I guess back then having that kind of bittersweet story was sought after, but definitely nowadays I think like I said myself, I enjoy those happy endings, satisfying kind of moments versus the ones that leave me a little despair and wanting everyone to have a good ending and getting having a family and stuff like that.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think it's true that, and this is something I have never thought about until now, but I think you are right that tragedies have become far less mainstream over the course of history. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, I did not mean to go into all of that. I just wanted to bring up the epic thing, but
All good.
it was definitely fun to talk about.
Yes.
I love Mikasa's reaction to Annie liking Armin. It just always makes me laugh. Just like,
Yeah.
huh?
Yes, yeah,
Kind
that
of
that face is
face.
great. And actually something I've noticed like on that topic that I've noticed well, especially now having read these four books today, I feel like there is a pretty good amount of romance slash hints at romance in these four books specifically. And
Right?
there hadn't really been well, obviously there were hints of it. Like in the Tross Doc there were maybe a couple hints and
Mm-hmm.
obviously chapter 50 is a relatively big one.
Mm-hmm.
But up until like well besides those instances there wasn't really much of that at all throughout Attack on Titan until the very end kind of these last four volumes where not only Mikasa's and Aaron's ship but also yeah Armin and Annie like both of those ships started getting a lot more focus kind of
Mm-hmm.
suddenly. I'm fine with the way it is, although I think I would have liked for perhaps the story as a whole to have sprinkled these things in a little more frequently, perhaps, or at
Yeah.
least more consistently, because it
Uh-huh.
sort of, I don't know, it was just maybe a little bit weird the way it just kind of suddenly started happening.
I can see what you're saying. I think part of that has to do with Annie just being in the crystal for so dang long, you know?
Okay, yeah, in
Like,
her case, it's I guess it makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
With with Mikasa, I mean, me being a day one Mikasa Aaron shipper, like I never really felt that it was not going to happen. uh, I mean, I was of course I was worried about how it would end, but I always felt like it was going to go in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I'm not gonna say oh I told you so or anything like that, but
Right, right.
I do feel like it was hinted at. However, uh, there were so many plot threads and other, I guess, themes that were going on in the story that that love story between Eren and Mikasa was kind of put on the back burner, um, especially in this latter half. I think in order to set up this final arc where it's revealed that, you know, he does love Mikasa very much, and
Yeah.
a part of me does like at the end, after having the table scene and all that, it likes that revelation of his feelings. But I do agree with you. It would have been nice to have more kind of romance sprinkled throughout than just the very beginning and then chapter 50 and maybe some little funny moments here and there where Mikasa gets jealous.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's true, true. Little stuff like that.
anyway, I think I do agree with you that it would have been nice to have that sprinkled in more, and I think it would
Mm.
have maybe stopped people. I mean, people can ship whatever they want, but maybe have stopped becoming so adamant about Historia and Eren being a thing.
Ah,
If it would have
okay.
been maybe more clear that Mikasa Eren was the end game, even though I thought it was clear, but I I can see wanting to give more light to it.
I think the one thing I would have wanted more is not necessarily anything big, but
Uh
here
huh.
and there some little hints about Eren
Right.
liking Mikasa back. Because I thought it was
Yeah.
clear enough that Mikasa liked Eren, but there weren't, at least in my opinion, weren't really enough signs pointing toward Eren liking Mikasa as well. Until obviously the
Mm-hmm.
last chapter where he straight up just shouted it kind of pathetically like that. Um,
Yeah.
but I would have liked to see that some more. Not something that would have been like for sure he likes her, but at least things for us to under
Okay.
like
I'll give you one. I'll give you one.
Yeah.
So, uh, John is like, "Oh my gosh, her hair is so beautiful. I love how beautiful it is." And then Aaron
Hmm.
sees that, and he's like, "You should cut your hair. It gets in the way."
Okay, okay.
That that's
That is
that's there's no way you could really confirm that's what he was thinking, but
right,
uh,
but still
I
could be.
it could now that we have this final chapter, it definitely could be.
Actually, that is a good point. That is a good point. But yeah, stuff like that. Give me like I would like to see
Some
more
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 of that
more,
would have
more
been
stuff like
nice,
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just little things like that. Mm.
right?
But anyway.
I agree. I agree.
Hmm.
At least we had chapter 50, but I still think about chapter 50 and I'm like, how do people not see that they both have feelings for each other? Like, obviously Mikasa is very strong there, but Aaron is said, I will wrap that scarf on you,
Yeah.
as many times as it takes. That is romantic
It is.
in a way, in for a shonen, you know.
Uh-huh.
Like, come on. I think so, at least.
It is, absolutely it is. It's just like, it just seems like this is one
But I
time
agree.
thing, and then it like never
It was
focused on
one
again
time.
for like
Yeah.
forever, kind of.
Yeah.
But
You know, I mean, all you had to do was make another joke, maybe because he wanted to do the same joke. And Isayama has said that he's kind of embarrassed about romantic stuff, at least in
yeah.
his younger days. So clearly he wasn't embarrassed about it by the end. But and, you know, hey, you know, love will do that to you.
True.
I'm pretty sure he got married.
He did, yeah, a couple of years before, a few years before he ended the series, I think.
Yeah. But no, what I was gonna say is, all they needed to do was have another, you know, go take care of your boyfriend moment, but do it with Aaron and tell him go take care of your girlfriend, and then see his reaction. You know, would he have been like, "What? No, she's not my girlfriend. What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah,
Or
right.
would he have been dumb about it and just yeah, whatever. You know, then that would have been a little more confusing, I guess. But still.
True.
Sorry, I had no intentions of talking about that, but thank you for letting me defend, or not defend, but just I wasn't really defending anything.
Just talking about it. I mean, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. You know how you like chapter is it 126?
127.
127. Excuse me.
Hmm?
That's your favorite chapter in this arc.
Yes.
I like that chapter, but I think I like the moment where they're on the plane and talking about being sinners and just even having better understanding. I think I might like that a little bit more. It's not as emotional or as dramatic, maybe is the right word, you know, people aren't punching each other at each other's throats, kind of a thing.
Right.
So that's fair. But I like how they, you know, both Connie and John are just like, you know, we're really the same, and we've done some terrible things. I killed my comrades, or comrades maybe the wrong word, but I've killed my own people. I've done some terrible things. I have no right to judge you for what you've done per se.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like that, and then I felt like that started. Yes, it started at 127 where Reiner was going to forgive himself, or not, maybe not forgive himself, but you know, find peace. But then I think there, it's like he's starting to feel a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Understanding, like, you know, maybe I deserve to live.
For sure. When I reread this scene today, or that scene in the plane, yeah, it was like pretty much right after they had started flying. I understood for the first time, I think, just how important that scene was for Reiner, especially because he really did get that closure with his old comrades in that scene, especially Jean and Connie. And yeah, it's just really, it's a nice follow up kind of to chapter 127 because it's it is kind of in the same vein. But yeah, I definitely appreciated it more than I had before.
Same, yeah.
Let's talk about Battle of Heaven and Earth. Peak. I know we have been neglecting her in the past couple of discussions.
Well, not today.
Not today, my friends. She is just fantastic, I think, throughout the whole Battle of Heaven and Earth.
Oh my gosh.
She is the one who puts together that, all of those enemy titans on Aaron's back are, but what they are, that they are titans from Titan shifters from throughout the past, and on top of that, she is the one to make the first advancement to attack Aaron by wrapping the explosives around his neck. She isn't the one to actually detonate him, but she does make the first move, ultimately against him, which I think is awesome that she is the one to do that. And the way she says, like, yeah, unlike you guys, I'm not Aaron's friend. I don't have like, there's nothing holding me back. and then also the reveal to her about her Titan power, how she can just kind of eject herself from the body and make a new one, kind of just infinitely, kind of just make new bodies over and over. Made perfect sense, kind of given what we knew about her Titan power, but wasn't anything that I had expected when I saw it the first time, and I love that so much about about her way to utilize her Titan when it's not weighed down by the Panzer unit and like all those gadgets and stuff. Like when she's free like this, she can really utilize her Titan like that, and it's so cool.
Agreed. And I wonder how nimble it is compared to the Jaw Titan. Maybe it's not as nimble, but man, she uses the best of her abilities, and just being able to transform back into the Card Titan again and again and again is just fascinating.
It's so cool.
I love the idea of her just like shooting out of her Titan like a cannonball and transferring again.
Yeah. Oh.
It's so cool, and I love when she goes to try to detonate the bomb. I love that line. Now, get out of my sight, you nightmare.
Yes.
Like, it's so epic, She's like, I've been thinking about this line for a long time.
Yeah. The entire boat ride, the entire plane ride, she was just thinking about it.
Ooh, that's good. Gosh, but Peak was amazing. And then when she's explaining her powers and she says, "John, don't worry about me." Oh,
that's right.
He's already gone.
He's already moving away.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, I think her highlight in this arc, at least, is definitely this battle. I would say, for sure.
Yeah, I think just last thing I'll say about her is, without her being there, they probably wouldn't have been able to do what they were able to in the end.
No.
Like getting that bomb on his head and having the resolve to actually kill Eren.
Yeah.
She was kind of the only one that didn't have any ties with him. So, yeah, I think she proved that she was an important part of that.
Totally. In fact, I like to think that every single one out of the 14 people that assembled in the Alliance, I think they were all crucial to making it all work out.
Kanye is, he barely qualifies, I feel like.
Okay, maybe Connie is the exception. Wait. Did Connie do nothing that no one else could have done? Well, Connie shot Samuel and Daz.
He did do that, yeah.
Which I guess needed to be done. I guess.
Yeah, I guess. And he did protect Annie and Armin on that port.
True.
Not Annie, Armin. Annie and Reiner.
Reiner, yeah. That's true. That's true.
But even then, anybody could have really done that. But I guess he was just he was a body. Well, that sounds wrong, but he was there as support. But when it came to the battle of heaven and earth, he was kind of a detriment.
Actually, yeah.
He's the reason why Levi got even more injured.
That is true. But I guess, thinking of it from the beginning, from the assemblance of the Alliance, he did some things.
Yeah, you're right.
At least, even if he didn't do much in the actual finale. But yeah, no, I like to think everyone else really, everyone, I will say, all of those 14 people did something. Yelena contributed with information. Onyankopon flew the plane, and everyone else did important things. That the plan wouldn't have succeeded without all of them.
Gabby not only had her amazing 360 no scope shots, but she also has like the big brains to figure out like that the centipede was
right.
The source of the power.
Exactly.
I still kind of like, what? How did she pull that out of her hat? Like, what the heck? Come on.
I'm into it.
Like, I'll buy the fact that she saw it, like she saw it going to head, but then just to be like, oh, that must be the source of all power. Like, what? Whatever. It's not that big of a deal.
No.
For me, at least.
But yeah. And I think everyone else is safe to say they were useful in their ways. Yep. So I love that. Falco, his Jaw Titan, or should I say Beak Titan? It
actually, that's pretty good because it's like Beast and Jaw put together. The Beak Titan.
Yeah, it. We never completely get explained how exactly he's able to have wings.
True.
But I guess the best explanation I can think of is,
Well, you know how Aaron is able to and Annie are able to activate their hardening in a
Right.
way, like because they don't automatically have it, they
Exactly.
decide to harden. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe he decides to grow wings.
Right. I mean, yeah, like precisely because it was, yeah, the first time he transformed he didn't have them, but the second time he did, and that was after he had remembered that vision of flying above the clouds, and so I suppose having the knowledge of the possibility of flying, then he maybe he could do it in a similar way as someone else would do hardening. I wonder, or I guess if it would be hardening, then he could have changed his arms into wings after having transformed into a second form, potentially, if it's like along those lines. Although I was also thinking that it might have been maybe something more like Reiner's hand transformation in the Marley arc, or when he just has a shitload of fingers um, to protect himself and Falco. Like one of those very special types of transformations where
Hmm.
it has to, well, it becomes that upon transformation. It's not something you can change after having already transformed, I guess. And so that maybe when he transformed the second time, he like that was how he was created with wings and all. Although I mean I don't know. Um, I I think it just comes down to the fact that he had the memory of that when he transformed that second time, and that somehow allowed him to fly.
I'll
Yeah.
buy it.
Yeah, I guess.
But I'm glad that he does come back into the fray. And it's
Mhm.
pretty epic, like having a flying titan like that.
It is. I like it.
Um,
I actually real quick on that. I love what we understand about the Beast Titans in this. Like at the end here,
mm,
just how varied the designs of them are and how they're really just kind of animalistic and like just based on different animals like that is what was fun to understand about the Beast Titan, and that it can be essentially any animal kind of.
yeah, we learned quite a bit about, or at least titan potentials from the nine great
Yeah,
titans.
yeah.
Who knew that they could be so diverse in
Hmm.
that way? But I guess
Yeah.
it gave a good excuse for why Falco could be the way he was.
Right. Yeah. I feel like yeah, exactly. With that, it definitely works out. Seeing as he's not technically a Beast Titan, but he does have Zeke's Beast Titan
Hmm.
fluid. So yeah,
Yeah,
I buy it.
I think Annie gets a nice moment towards the end. Um, well, I mean, I think it's great to have her back, and her kind of coming to realization of what she cares about, and not
Mm.
just having regrets about what could have been, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, actually uh, fighting for what she wants, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, she wants her man, so go get her man. Um,
Yes.
and because she did that, they saved the world. So
Mm.
yeah, good for Annie, and I'm glad that she was able to see her father eventually and all that jazz.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I remember when we were going through these chapters monthly, and we were talking about the second to last chapter, and
Hmm.
I really enjoyed the tragedy that chapter brought. With with all of those characters being turned into titans, and
Oh
and
yeah.
and I imagine that's how they are. Like they're not gonna get just turned back, all of them. Like if anyone comes back as a human, it's gonna be through another titan shifter's sacrifice, like if that. And I really enjoyed that tragedy of it at the time.
I remember that. I do remember that.
So when the
I'm
final
pretty sure I was
chapter,
against that.
yeah, you were, you absolutely were. Uh, but then when the final chapter came out, and well, yeah, everything just kind of turned out very fine. I had a little bit of an issue with it,
I
although.
was so
Uh,
disappointed.
I mean, I don't know. I just, well, in some
I just
cases I was
had an
happy,
Aaron
like,
moment.
but I don't know. Well, I wasn't all on board at first. However, um, I mean, ultimately, I still thought it was a fine ending. I think initially I rated the first chapter in and of itself as 6 out of 10, which for
Hmm.
me is, well, I mean, it's good, but it's definitely not great. or well, I don't know. Anyway, uh, but when the well, we kind of made a second podcast discussion about the final chapter when the new pages were added, and by
Mm-hmm.
then I think I had upped my score by 1 point or so. So, but anyway, what basically my point now is that I've realized that kind of the more time that passes and the more times I reread this last chapter, I seem to enjoy it more and more each time, kind of. Um,
Yeah.
and I really like this last chapter now. I don't think I really have much of a grievance at all with it. Um, I understand it's not like, I understand it could have been executed better perhaps in some ways, but I'm really cool with it. I really enjoy it. I always get teary eyed when Reiner reunites with his mother and they have
Oh
their
yeah.
little interaction there. Um,
Absolutely.
and just in general, I do think the story is tied up nicely.
Yeah. I guess on that topic, I feel really my main grievance would be that maybe his Historia's section could have been a little longer or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's the main thing. Yeah, I agree.
But besides that, I do agree that everything works out well. Even the additional pages, um, while controversial, I think when you take it as a whole and um, not with out of context, I think it does make sense and it's an easier pill to swallow.
Hmm.
Um, and it does kind of make the story fit the tragic ending, like the tragic feeling of the series.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I agree with that. But going back a little further,
Hmm.
I still wonder why Ymir attacked. Like, why did Ymir attack? Like, why was she the one that was sending all those Titans out? And my idea was that in order for Armin to lose consciousness in the Okapi's mouth, she sent all the Titans, the 9 power Titans to attack the Alliance in order to give that time. Because otherwise they would have quickly gotten to the Okapi and just killed it and gotten Armin out.
Hmm. Okay.
That's my only way to
Interesting.
justify it because I have no
Ah.
idea why else she would be so adamant about attacking them. Like why? Like why? Other than to make an epic ending.
Well, so the way I always viewed it was just that she genuinely wanted to destroy the world because she felt like the world had wronged her in her life, and she just wanted to destroy the entire world. And she, well, was using Eren to do
Then
that.
why not eat? Why not kill Armin right then and there? Or
But yeah, yeah. I guess that yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that is a good point, and I think your explanation works, um, perhaps, as an explanation to that.
hmm
I can definitely get behind that.
But something I feel like is clearer for me about Emir
Hmm?
is the whole uh love thing with King Fritz, or the first king,
Yeah.
and that it's definitely kind of a Stockholm syndrome type of a thing. But I find the comparison with her and Mikasa very interesting. Well, I wouldn't call Mikasa's love for Eren a Stockholm syndrome.
No.
They obviously are in love with people that are not great,
That's
like are not
fair.
making great choices.
True.
Like I mean, I've always loved Eren as a character, and
Hmm.
he has good in him, but clearly he makes a choice that is irredeemable. Um, and that's coming from the guy who thinks that all humans can be redeemed in some way. But I mean, no one is capable of doing this 80% genocide, are they? Anyway, let's not get into
Yeah.
that. But um, I think that the what makes Mikasa and Emir's comparison so interesting is that Mikasa was able to do what Emir could not. kill the man she loved.
Ah.
Like, and not to say that Ymir was supposed to murder him, but there's that panel where you see Fritz or the king dead,
Mm.
with the spear that Ymir took, but instead, like in an alternate reality, he dies. And I don't necessarily think that's an actual reality per se, or that the future changes. I think that's what she wished deep down she could have done and lived with her children.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
You know
I think Aaron gave her that life kind of simulated, like pathsy. I think he gave her
that's
that
potential. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, right before her end, or right before the end of paths and Titan powers and everything. So she got to kind of experience that life with that little what if thing if she hadn't jumped in front of the spear, and
Mm-hmm.
she would have had a longer life and a life with her children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kind of, so she died happily. I don't know. Have you played a game called To the Moon? Is it an indie game from many years back now?
No, I haven't.
It's I'm gonna try to make this very brief, but basically,
Sure.
it's about to it's a story game made in like RPG Maker, but like it's very much just focused on the story. It's about two scientists who have a machine that allows them to jump into another person's memories and explore another person's memories and to a degree alter those memories. And so the game is about them visiting an old man who has hired them to basically to die happy, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so they jump into his memories, and throughout the game you experience his whole life from childhood up until old age, kind of. And through learning about him, they are able to, in the end, give him his ultimate wish, which is to go to the moon. And he
Hmm.
dies in the end of the game thinking that he went to the moon, and he was very happy in his
Oof.
dying moments. It's a really heavy game. I just kind of spoiled the game now. I'm sorry about. It's an old game though, or kind of. Um, Although I will say, even knowing about that, it's a really powerful story. Like it
Mm-hmm.
really, even knowing though that spoiler that I just gave, which I'm sorry if I did, or that I did.
Whatever.
It's still a really, like, just experiencing it in the game is really good, and it kind of, I think that game basically was what gave me the idea that Erin may have kind of, well, basically given
Hmm.
Ymir that memory through paths so that she could die happy or vanish happy or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's a thread on Twitter by a Twitter user with the name at Lovely Emir.
Hmm?
So it kind of a generic Attack on Titan um, fan Twitter account, but they give an antithesis of Emir, Mikasa Ackerman. Now I'm not going to read really any of this, but it's it's a thread that is interesting, and I don't necessarily agree 100% with it. I think there's some stretches in terms of their comparisons,
Ah,
but there are some interesting points, and I'll probably post it in the Discord chat. But I encourage you to read it and see how, in some ways, Mikasa was able to do it, in a lot of ways what Emir wasn't able to do, and
mhm.
you know, Emir being not free, but Mikasa being free from the king, in a way, is very interesting.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, that kind of gave me even greater appreciation for uh, this subplot. But
Hmm.
even without this thread, this extra page that's added to the volume with Mikasa seeing Emir, it does add a lot for me, and I think it gives Emir the closure she needs, um, or at least for me to be satisfied with how it all ends for her.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
I hate how in the end they use Aaron and Mikasa's words of,
Oh, the Jaegerists use
yeah, the
the.
the Jaeger is, if we
Mm,
win we live, if we lose we die. It's like,
yeah, yeah. That is.
eh, it's not meant for you.
No, right? Yeah, you don't deserve to say that. Yeah,
uh,
I feel you.
and I think it's definitely the point. The probably the I guess you could argue the words of great people can be misconstrued to match
Mm,
the mindsets of arguably terrible people. Um, I mean, you look at this is kind of going extreme, but you look at like some religions where, yeah, they have some great teachings in their books, but
Mm,
then extremists take those teachings and they twist them and they try to match it
yeah,
to be their own thing, so they discriminate against others and whatnot. I mean,
true.
that's a trope really in storytelling as well. But yeah, it just kind of bugs me to see something that was so important and deep to Aaron and Mikasa's relationship
Mm,
be used as like a mantra for hate.
yeah,
I
right.
I don't like it. I mean, it's tragic, but it's like makes me
Yeah,
mad.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really well made though, and I mean, yeah, it's like how it mirrors reality in that way that you described, uh, and like, 'cause it makes sense for them to want to use that. But yeah, it does suck.
So that's a good saying. Do you mind if I borrow it?
Yeah.
Too late. And yeah, so you mentioned how you've grown a great appreciation for the story,
Mm,
or for the ending, and I feel similarly. Like for me, it all comes together better. It makes me wish I kind of would have read the story all in one go versus chapter by chapter.
Oh yeah, oh
But I
yeah,
still,
cause today
mhm.
the both of us read like the at least the last volume in one go, right? For the first time.
Yeah, that was my first time too.
Yeah, it was great experiencing the story like this instead of waiting a month between each chapter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret, like, especially since we had our podcast episodes and discussions. Those are all fun times, but
Hmm.
you know, not having to worry about theorizing or well, the speculation just gets too much sometimes, and
Yeah,
having it all in one place and one right after the other, I think it just you better understand what the author is trying to get at
totally.
versus um, reading a chapter and then trying to predict
Mm.
what the ending could be,
Yeah,
and which sets you up for disappointment.
yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of cases it did, sadly. But yeah, yeah, no, I would advise anyone who hasn't read these last volumes kind of quicker than a month in between each chapter. I recommend you to actually read these chapters again relatively quick.
Right.
It definitely makes a difference.
In volume format.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's been a great difference, and it's not just because it's a reread. It's also definitely because we're reading them as a more of a consistent thing.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I guess one of the last things I want to say, I guess about the arc as a whole, something I just love about this arc and these last four volumes is really the camaraderie that is built up between these unlikely allies. And I mean, surely it's happened to a degree before, but like this part of the story really focuses on that, and a lot of sweet moments kind of come from it as well, from these
Mm.
pairings that you hadn't necessarily expected, at least in this part of the story. Some examples would be, Reiner and John, Gabby and Kaya, Armin and Zeke, Mikasa and Annie, Peek and Kiyomi, Magath and Shadis, Reiner and Connie, Gabby and Armin, Annie and Kiyomi, Jean and Peek as well, etc. There's so many like pairings that aren't necessary, or like a couple of books ago would have never worked together. But in these four books, you get a bunch of these different constellations of characters that it just works so well between them, and they are just super sweet together, kind of. And yeah, that's just something I really love, because this message of settling our differences in order to work together is just so strong in this arc, and I think Isayama portrayed it and executed it really well.
Agreed. Yeah, there was a lot of interesting combinations that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Right, right.
Something I just realized I forgot to mention is how much I love chapter 138, and that's
Mm,
it's hard. It's hard for me to say if it is or not, but it's definitely in the running for my favorite chapter. I just adore. Uh, I cry every time I read that chapter
mm,
because of how bittersweet it is.
right.
I do like the last chapter, but it's chapter 138 for me that you know it really puts me in my place. Like
I understand. I
I
mean, and also knowing how big of a fan you are. I mean, Mikasa is your favorite character, and so
yeah,
I understand that totally.
yeah. So she gets her final grand moment. I mean, she has some moments in 139 as well, but
Hmm.
it's 138 where she really shines, and you could see her resolve and um, her willingness to still love the man, but put it into his terrible mistake. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and that kiss at the end. I know some people really were disturbed by that kiss. I mean, it's I guess it's disturbing the fact that yes, Aaron dies there, but I don't know. Like I think it's kind of goth metal ish. There's something not it's not necrophilia. I'm not gonna say that.
No.
Like I think people
Or
who say that are memesters who are just upset that Historia didn't end up with Aaron. So
yeah, no, I mean, I was iffy on it at first, but after the last chapter came out and you got more of an understanding of kind of, well, the vision that she had and all of that, you understood all of that much better after the last chapter. Since then, I've been perfectly cool with that bit.
but the vision was in 138.
I know, but you understood the vision, like the context of the vision. Or at least I think we understood it better after having understood everything that comes with the chapter after it. Because it's not until
Okay.
then that we understand that like, because I think it's easy to assume that it was just Mikasa's it was all in Mikasa's head, potentially what we got.
Oh, okay.
But after the
Okay,
final
okay,
chapter, we
okay.
understand that it was all a conversation with Aaron, actually, yeah.
Well, and also, you know, some people like yourself weren't very much in the Mikasa Aaron ship.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess you could see it as non-consensual.
I mean, yeah, like
Maybe
that
if
was
you didn't
definitely
have that mindset.
part of it, yeah.
But I think
But
after 139, it's
mm,
clear that it was consensual.
absolutely, yeah,
Like, yeah.
for sure.
And I remember some people saying, "Oh, do you think he like puckers his lip there?" At the time I was like, "No, I think that's too far." But reading it again, I'm like, "Oh, maybe he did." Like, oh my gosh, he was ready for that.
I wonder. Could be,
uh,
could be.
the anime will clear it all up. Anyway, um,
Oh.
so yeah, the 138 brings me to tears still, and 139 does give me teary eyed as well.
Mm.
Just finally ending the Titan powers. That was one of my things going towards these final few volumes, or I guess chapters, that I thought the Titan powers would end. Like I felt like that had to be in game,
Yeah.
and there was some pushback from some fans saying that would ruin the series or that would emphasize something about racism or something like that. People. Anyway, um, I think that was the ultimate freedom, is to get rid of that power.
It is.
So
It is.
anyway, and I'm glad it went that way.
Totally.
And I guess the last thing I'll say is I love the Attack of School cast. Like I feel like
Good,
that
good.
is
I was
the
just about to
actual
bring that up
ending.
too, so that's great.
Good. Like that, I feel like you have to add that into whatever anime ending they do. There's got to be
Right.
like an end of credits kind of thing, and they have that in there. They have to do it. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah, like the one in volume 34, absolutely.
Yes.
Definitely would be fun. Cuz that's Attack on School Cast's bit kind of stands on its own too. You don't need to have, read all of the previous ones for that one. So
Right.
I think that would definitely be nice. Um the
It's
one
not as zany as the other ones.
right. Yeah, you're right. I think, well, the one I wanted to lift up a little bit though is the one from volume 33 where they're in the sauna, and I just, well, we do get to see Reiner's and Zeke's butts there, and I also think I may have spotted Falco's little penis. Like, I think so,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's a little Falco dick there. Uh, so I hadn't thought of that before. I just thought that was kind of fun.
But hey, he gave the people what they wanted. Zeke, not that, no! Zeke and Reiner butt! Gosh, I really sounded. That's not what I was talking about.
Okay. Okay. Good.
See, Zeke and Reiner Butt is okay.
They are. They're fine. They're very fine.
But he couldn't draw it back, draw the butt back in the previous arc.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But here he was like, yeah, no problem.
Totally. Yeah. Great stuff. I again can't wait for Isayama's potential next project. Whatever he does, I will read it.
There's no way he's doing Attack on Titan 2 or like setting it in the same world, right?
I don't think so, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't think so.
Like I'm not as convinced as again I keep using like these imaginary some people, but they exist. that he's setting up a potential sequel or for somebody to take. I don't think that's what he's trying to do here. I think it's just
Yeah.
more like poetic and
I think it's more like life goes on
tragic.
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think.
I agree.
Mm.
That's my thinking.
Right.
Would I be opposed to it? I mean, obviously, I'm open to what he has planned, but I would like to see him touch on a different genre or
Yeah, it would be fun.
a different world, either be real life or another world.
Whatever he does, we will probably cover it on Umami Manga.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Well, it depends how long he takes.
Yeah, that is true. He deserves a long break. But time for the big question: favorite character arc throughout these last 4 books?
Oh yeah.
Shoot.
I'm just gonna go for the simp Mikasa because something I didn't mention in the discussion is that you can see that she's struggling to come to grips with what she has to do, like the ultimate choice.
Yeah.
And it was all on her to make that choice of killing Eren, because the way Isayama frames it is that she's really the only one capable at that time. Like,
Yeah, right. Yeah, like the others try to be there for her and try to like make it so that she doesn't, so that she won't have to be the one, but ultimately she has to anyway.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, and so I like that resolve, that change. In her, I guess you could change because before she was totally against it, but then she resolves to do it, and but still love the man, and all that. So I just love that. I guess you could say, but I have to also acknowledge Armin and that he had a great arc there as well.
Absolutely. Well, Armin is actually my choice for this arc.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it felt strange when I looked over the characters and I tried to decide whose character journey throughout these that I actually liked the most. And yeah, like it was for me, it was hands down Armin. I didn't feel like anyone else came too close to him in my mind. Obviously, there were others that were definitely also fantastic, but I felt like Armin was pretty much the clear choice for me. As I mentioned, like throughout most of his arc, he really is at like an all-time low.
Yeah.
But he still fights on. You know, he helps Connie become a better soldier. He saves Falco from being eaten. He starts being honest with himself about his feelings for Annie, kind of throughout this arc. And he helps Zeke see the beauty in the world and thus putting an end to the rumbling. And ultimately, he is the one to step up to ease the tension when Secretary Miller is asking, you know, if they're human or if they're Titans, which also is obviously a very nice callback to Armin's first big moment in the manga, I would argue, back in the Trost arc when he defended Eren in a similar way.
Absolutely.
So it really ties his entire journey up really nicely. But yeah, just looking at these books, he just pushed on so strongly despite feeling so down in the dumps, kind of. And I absolutely appreciate him for that. And yeah, just a really strong character and character journey here.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, it's a close second for me. I definitely don't want to say Mikasa ran away with it for me, but you know, both those two being, I guess, part of the three main characters of the series.
Yeah.
Really shined, I'd say.
Nice.
Honorable mention Zeke. I think in the short time he was there, he had a great moment, obviously with Armin, but his ability to come to grips and find joy in the little things in life, I think was just so powerful.
I love that. Yeah. I think that moment in Paths is my favorite Armin scene in the whole manga, maybe.
It is really, really good.
So yeah, that's our Attack on Titan reread. All 34 volumes, all 139 chapters.
Woo! Goodness.
Been a blast. And
we're past the anime.
and we're definitely past the anime. Yeah. Oh, and then the anime, or at least this part of the season that's been airing now, should be over by the time that we publish this episode.
Yeah. And then we gotta wait for whatever's next.
If it's season 4 part 3 or the movie, yeah.
Final season was a lie.
Totally. Oh my god. They announced that, I think, the day when they released the last episode of season 3 is like, final season is up next. And I'm like, what? The manga's not even over. Like,
idiots.
It's so premature. But yeah.
Stupid marketing tactics.
Really strange. But hey, we're getting good content, and this season has been fantastic.
Absolutely.
Like season 4 part 2 has been absolutely great.
Chef kiss.
Totally. And yeah, so for anyone curious about what's next on Umami Manga, or sorry, not Umami Manga, on Titan Teatime specifically, we will, in the 3 coming months, we'll be talking about the anime actually. So in our next month's discussion, we will talk about season 1. So that'll be fun. I actually have kind of, since this has been a plan for a while, I've sort of intentionally not rewatched the anime. Obviously, I've been watching the new stuff that's been coming out, but I haven't really watched any of the other parts of the anime. So it'll be fun to rewatch that again. And so we're probably not going to be focusing on the story, because obviously we've covered the story in our manga reread, but we'll be talking about more like the stuff that's unique for the anime, like potential anime unique scenes, little changes, but probably largely like voice acting, animation, music, those sorts of things. So I imagine it might be shorter episodes, but I look forward to talking about that nonetheless.
I will try. I think I can do that. I think we can make it short.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine since we're not going to be talking much about the story itself, which I imagine would be the main thing. I mean, there's still probably going to be about an hour anyway, which I think is a good length regardless. But I guess that is it though, unless you have any final words.
I don't think I do.
Cool, me neither. Then, if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by either rating our show on the podcast platforms or subscribing to our channel Umami Manga on YouTube. If you like this episode, please share it with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about Season 1 of the Attack on Titan anime. Bye bye!
See you later! So, what have you been doing, huh? Oh, yeah, editing a video? Well, I mean, I could probably get my grandson to do that.